The Brewhouse was created to capture and share with you the long history of the Genesee Brewery. But the brewery itself isn't half as interesting as the beer and the people who make it. Visit GeneseeBrewhouse.com. Hello, everyone, and welcome into the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. Nice to have you with us. I'm Bill Pucko, and it's a pleasure to be rejoined by Bob Bleier, our NFL quarterback representative here at Aquinas. Mike Catalana, co-hosting with Pat Duffy. Who are you wearing today?
Tool time, baby. Jeff Toole. Fun fact, he is by far the smallest quarterback of all the jerseys that I have. I'm in a lot of pain right now. This thing's really tight.
And it was also like, that was the most headline fun, too, wasn't it? Did we ever have more fun than a guy's last name is Toole and doesn't play well?
You talked to him, right?
Yeah.
For a guy that had the tiny career that he did, pretty arrogant and not easy to work with. Just going to throw that out there. Just throwing it out there.
Maybe it's the number 7.
I can't breathe.
Or most quarterbacks are.
As a former quarterback. Bob, talk to us. This hasn't been a great week for Rochester sports, or a great month necessarily. We lost the Rochester Rattlers. The women's soccer team is gone. As we speak, the Rhinos are on life support. Is Rochester even a decent sports town in light of everything that happens here?
You know, the irony, in my opinion, is that you've got all these other communities around us. Syracuse has major college basketball. Buffalo has the major hockey, major football. We seem to be JV in a varsity program. We never have that stellar, stunning, professional sports program. Yeah, the Red Wings are good. They're a good farm system, but I think we've always been JV. We're always going to be JV.
Been here almost as long as me, Mike.
Yeah, I think there was a time when the support for the minor league teams was much stronger, though the Red Wings had a really good year, at least attendance-wise. It's really disappointing with the Amherst. Because especially this year, I think they've put a better product on the ice, but they've got a lot of room to catch up with fans. The world has changed a little bit that way with how people perceive those minor league sports. And I look at those other cities. You look at Buffalo and you look at Syracuse. They support their minor league teams in a very similar way to we do here in Rochester. The difference, as Bob says, is they've got the big-time sports. So I think it's a little unfair to rip Rochester because, look at it, if you're a big-time sports fan, you've got to look each way on the thruway. And there are some very passionate people in this town who follow the teams that are down the thruway. I think there's some big-time fans. I think we don't have those sports. We don't have them here in town. So it's hard to be, how many cities are larger than Rochester or the same size as Rochester that don't have at least Division I major, say a basketball program, or don't have a professional team? We're one of the largest in the country that doesn't have that.
Just real quick, we do have a Division I
the hockey team.
RT Tigers. I love them. They're great. I think maybe you should jump on board with that. But to go even further, to get you back to what you did to me last week.
Yes, that's true.
But, okay, I look at it this way. Amherst in particular, I think that the major league, the Sabres play into that because the Sabres have not been playing well lately, and they have been drafting poorly, so you weren't seeing the stars that were coming from Rochester going up to Buffalo, where 15 years ago, I knew that the goalie that was in net, Marty Biron, was going to be playing in Buffalo, and Ryan Miller was going to be playing in Buffalo. Hopefully that changes with Bailey and Baptiste and Rodriguez and Linus Ullmark in net. I think once that starts happening, people start going back down to the Blue Cross Arena.
Nighthawks, I give them credit. They have a very loyal fan base that has been a loyal fan base for a while. The Rattlers did not get fans to go. It's great lacrosse. These guys are spectacular players. But nobody is sitting there going, I got it. And I feel badly for their fans, and I certainly feel badly for the Rhinos fans because through the years they've had that core of people. But we know it has gone down. And I'm sorry, we can't create the interest in these teams. Sometimes media get blamed. You don't push this enough. Yeah, but there is a point where, people, what do they talk to me about? I go around town, they talk to me about two things, the Bills and Syracuse basketball. That's what I get the general questions about. I rarely get anything about the other teams. Not that there isn't interest, but I think it's almost unfair to rip Rochester and say you're bad because we aren't coming out for some of these other teams. I do think it's somewhat circumstances of where we are.
And the other sport is like rip the newspapers is the other one. True. That they don't cover these teams. And I said, well, did you ever read the articles? They go, well, no.
Yeah. And those sports, too, are not the type that it's day-to-day. It's transactional. It's what did they do? Who's up? Who's down? All those things. That's not really the case with the Rhinos. It used to be more with the Amherst because people were more locked into the Amherst than they were with the Sabres. The world's changed a little bit. As bad as the Sabres are, they're still an NHL team.
This is the Rochester Press Box presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. We'll talk about one of our favorite teams next, the Buffalo Bills. The Press Box, brought to you in part by Connors and Ferris, your workers' comp attorneys. Call 262-COMP, C-O-M-P, today. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us. This is the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brewhouse, and Connors and Ferris brings you our Buffalo Bills portion of the show. Patriots are in town.
Yeah.
Eight points is the line.
Well, I mean, New England is a considerably better team. They always play well in Orchard Park. Actually, I think they play the Bills better in Orchard Park than they do in Foxborough. They're a great team. I'll give the Bills credit for this last week. I thought their defensive game plan was excellent against the Chargers, against the Chiefs, and I give Leslie Frazier a lot of credit. I think they confused Alex Smith, which helped, and the defense stepped up, stopped the run, and did all those things. But all that confusing and doing all these things doesn't work this week. We know that. Brady is not the guy you try to fool in that way. He has seen everything and done everything, and their offense is playing well. I think the Bills will play with emotion this week. I just don't think they have enough offense. I think these are the weeks when everybody looks at, Tyrod Taylor and why the Bills made that decision a few weeks ago that failed, but they realized that in order to win these kind of games, you need more offense. Now, I'm not saying it's Nate Peterman. I'm saying is they know it's more. The Tyrod way with the good defense worked last week. It worked 5 other times this year, but you need more offense. I don't think they have it this
So you're going
week.
to pick the Bills. What is your path to making sense of this?
Here's what I'm thinking. The Patriots have been playing unbelievably well the last couple weeks. The Patriots always have one stumble game before and they go on that December run. They are due for that stumble game. The Bills need 10 wins, I think, to make the playoffs the way the Ravens are playing right now with their schedule. If they're going to get that 10th win, it has to be New England at home because you're not going to get New England on the road. All of that being said, I'm going to pick the Bills to cover. I don't know if they win, but I just have a feeling that the Patriots are going, Belichick's going to do what he loves to do, where he tries to lean on the players that he took from you to beat you. Gillislee, Hogan, Gilmore. Hogan's been hurt. I don't think he's going to play on Sunday. Gillislee has been a healthy scratch for 3 weeks, and if you're going to take that guy out of the training room and throw him on the field, you're going to have a problem, and Gilmore is not the corner that they thought he was, even though he ended up with an interception last week. I think they're going to do it. Bills cover. Bills win.
Pat.
You're a former Patriot.
I am. I squeeze silently for the Patriots.
So I was going to ask if there's still something
But
there.
here's the thing about Bills fans. You guys are familiar with the stock market, how the stock market moves up and down. Last week, Bills fans were in the high. It was a perfect storm. Kansas City rolls into town. They're playing terrible football. Caught him at a really good time. Alex Smith is not the quarterback that he should be, in my opinion. And then after a big win, what happens? A huge letdown for the fan base at Buffalo. I see that happening again this week. I don't think they can hang with the Patriots. I think New England will put the foot on the pedal and roll Buffalo this weekend.
But here's the difference. It wouldn't be a letdown. All Bills fans are expecting to lose this game on Sunday. No one's going to be upset. 30th ranked run defense in the NFL, the Patriots. 32nd ranked pass defense. That counts for something. I feel it.
Pick second game.
For good karma. I'm sorry. Good job. For good karma, we need the Ravens to collapse too. They're playing Detroit. I'm going to take Detroit to cover back 3 against Baltimore.
All right, you got the Pats. So what's your second game?
I got the Saints -4. Carolina's playing New Orleans. So I think New Orleans is just too strong right now. They're on a roll. I see them as a really solid playoff team.
It's a fun division. So again, which way do you go on the Bills game?
I'm going to say New England covers in the game. I think New England covers in the game. I'm going to take the Arizona Cardinals at home, getting 7 points from the Rams. The Rams are a good team. They can score. They're coming off a big win they just had against New Orleans. I think the Rams will win the game, but I think Arizona has at least shown a little bit of life, and I think Arizona stays in the game with them, loses at home.
All right, I'm going to go along with you with a home underdog. I like Seattle playing your Eagles in Seattle and getting about 5 points.
Yeah, Seattle's, obviously always tough at home. So
and surprise, I'll pick the Pats.
Wow.
Connors and Ferris, the sponsor of this segment of the Rochester Press Box, will award the winner of our Pick the NFL contest a check of $500 to be donated to the Hunters Hope Foundation. This portion of the Rochester Press Box is brought to you by Connors and Ferris. Like it or not is next. Welcome back to the Rochester Press Box, presented by the mighty Genesee Brewhouse. Like it or not, Mike, and you've been there a lot. Too many people on the sidelines of a football game stemming from the injury of the Ohio State quarterback.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with the comment that there's too many people, but don't go blaming the guy with the camera because he's actually working. Years ago, we used to be able to go down on the field with our photographers and be down on the field for many, many Bills games. I was down there. They were working. I was watching. But you're down on the field. All of a sudden, it just started to change and change. There's more people from the league. The sidelines are packed. There is people all over the place now on the sidelines of a college game and an NFL game. Many of them are working, but I think that is something that they could adjust. A place like Orchard Park, too, happens to be really tight on those sidelines, makes it harder. But I think they could thin that out
pretty easily.
Easily, because there's a lot of people, especially at a college game, big donors, this person, that person, all standing down there. Recruits on the sidelines.
But that's what's so funny is everybody's going to get upset about the camera guy. Bro, you've got 50 people that give you money standing on the sideline, and you're going to complain about a guy who's giving you
that's
team
what
coverage.
I'm saying is I'm with the. That's why they're ripping the. He's standing up there ripping the guy. I'm going to do an investigation. Yeah, okay. There's a lot of people you could get off the sidelines. That guy or woman, I don't even know which one it was. That person was working during the game. So,
Bobby, like it or not, Eli Manning is sitting this week for the Giants.
I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago about Eli's body language on the field. And if you saw the headline today in ESPN, he's got his head down walking off the field again. His body motions, his movement, it's not that of a leader. So I'm in favor of sitting him this week. I'm entirely in favor of sitting him. If you look at what happened to Peyton Manning, you look at what happened to Brett Favre, you look at what happened to Joe Montana, all these Hall of Famers who found finally the organization found time to give them an exit, he'll go somewhere else and play for a few more years.
Yeah, but Eli's kind of always been that way, hasn't he? He's never been a rah-rah guy.
He never has been, but the league is changing. Yeah. Look at the quarterback position in leadership now. I'm not sure if he's going to be a Giant moving forward. There's been a lot of talk of him. Maybe they're just letting him down easy. They were going to play him for a half and then substitute the second half. And I saw the interview with him today, and he was crying. He's crushed by this, but I think it's a good move for the Giants.
You got to respect. I think you have to respect the fact that he came out and said, I don't want to keep the streak alive just for the sake. Well, if you really don't want to play him, you don't play him.
It's a silly notion because there's 5 games left. If it was a game, maybe it would have made sense, and he's going to be gone. He starts the game, and then somebody else comes in. It's 5 games. What are you going to do that? For 5 games, you're going to play him for a little bit and then pull him out of the game? I'm glad he said, I'm not going to do that.
But to go even further, the Giants making this move, it's a terrible decision because you're not going to a second or third round pick to see if he can play. You're going to Geno Smith.
Yeah, now they are going to the other guy, and I believe that guy's going to play at least maybe within 2 weeks. But I'm with you in this case. Why make the move now? I actually think they thought Eli was going to go along with the idea of starting and then coming out of the game, and they feel like they need to give Webb a few more weeks of practice reps. They could not have handled it from the PR standpoint any worse than they did. But the sentiment of watching Eli over the past few years, I mean, he is not the quarterback that he was.
It's always tough to address it as a former, professional athlete yourself. You always hear, "I'm going to know when it's time. I'm going to know when it's time." You never know when it's time. You get dragged off kicking and screaming.
Well, actually, you sometimes do know when it's time. If you can't throw the deep out, if you've got happy feet in the pocket, if you can't avoid a rush, if you can't help your team with your feet or with your arms.
But these guys never walk away.
But hold on. But there's a difference between not knowing when you're done and not knowing when you're done with your team.
Correct.
Right? I mean, Joe Montana wasn't done because they had Steve Young, and he went to Kansas City and was pretty good.
Favre goes to Minnesota.
Right. You can still play. I think at some point, I just think the Giants just were so clumsy in the way they handled it and came off really
Well, just
poorly.
quickly, is there a future for Eli Manning in the NFL still? I mean, can he be productive somewhere else like Montana did?
I think Buffalo or Jacksonville would be great fits for him.
Look, you can buy a new
This is
jersey.
the Rochester Press Box presented by the Genesee Brew House, and Unfinished Business is next.
Dunkin' has lots of fall favorites to root for. Maple pecan, pumpkin, maple sugar bacon. But on game day, we root for one team. One team, baby. Win the fall, folks.
Welcome back to the Rochester Press Box presented by the Genesee Brew House. This portion, Unfinished Business, brought to you by Dunkin' Donuts. America runs on Dunkin'. Pat.
Things are going pretty well for your Rochester Americans, and they're only getting better. Seth Griffith, the guy who's one of those tweener NHL, AHL guys, cleared waivers. He's coming to play for the Americans. He's a point-per-game hockey player in the AHL. I just have one question. How can the Amherst be playing so well with so much star power? Bailey, who's really been hurt not playing, Baptiste, Rodriguez, who's back, Griffith, who's coming, Hudson Fasching, Linus Allmark, and the Sabres could be so very bad. Like, they're the opposite of each other right now, and the hopeful fan in you may be looking at the Amherst and saying these guys are going to be NHL stars moving forward. But with the way that Bailey's played when he's been up with Buffalo, the way that Baptiste has played, the way that Rodriguez has played so far, is it possible that we have a team full of tweeners, guys that are outstanding in the AHL and can't cut it in the NHL? Like maybe what Seth Griffith could be? The problem is we're not going to know until this Sabres team gets better because you need guys around those guys to make the third and fourth line guys look halfway decent. And we don't know when this Sabres team is going to get good again. My biggest fear as a Sabres and Amherst hockey fan is that we're going to lose out on guys like we have before, your Braden McNabbs, who could actually play in the league, but the Sabres never thought so because there was no one around to play with them.
Kudos to the NFL for the suspensions of Aqib Talib and Michael Crabtree. For those of us who are NFL fans and watch some of this constant bickering on the field between receivers and defensive backs, it's kind of getting a little old. But here's where I'm giving the NFL props, is that they suspended both players for 2 games. It's not necessarily the paycheck that they're going to miss. I think it's the stage that they're going to miss. So giving a 2-game suspension, reducing it to 1 game, hopefully it'll change things in the NFL. But when you get these veteran players that are constantly seeing each other 2 times a year, possibly 3 times a year in the playoffs, you're always going to have it. But I think these guys got to bring it under control and understand that this is a fan game as well, and they are on the big stage.
If you're a teammate of one of these guys and you see this kind of thing get out of hand like this, I mean, what's it make you feel? I mean, that's such a selfish act.
It entirely is, but there's so much emotion in the game of football.
Yeah.
There's just so much emotion involved, and I guarantee both those guys backed off and said, I'm sorry for doing it. I shouldn't have done it. If I had to do it over again, it would be different.
The problem with those two is a personal beef that they've had going on, and it went out onto the field that way. The other part, I have to say, is I listened to Deion Sanders ripping both players.
Oh, for God's sakes.
Did he not remember his swinging fights? Was it Andre Rison?
Yeah,
right?
Andre,
beating each other on the field.
Deion was body slammed.
Yeah.
And you just said beef.
Yes.
It's just weird watching a guy like you use the phrase beef.
Really?
I don't know.
Okay.
It was
That's
just
old
weird.
school.
I'm just saying, there's young guy slang, and then there's...
Oh, that's a young guy slang now.
It's not?
So it's come back around again?
Oh, excuse me.
Because people have been saying that since back in the old days. All right, so we talked a little bit about what was going on with the Giants. And the Giants, with the Eli thing and all, are a mess. And the Jets are barely above water, and everybody knows they're in a big transition. You look at the rest of New York sports. Everybody always talks about, it's New York. You can't do this. You can't rebuild. People will demand more. Look at New York sports. The Knicks are maybe starting to breathe a little bit, but that's still not a good basketball team. Obviously, don't even worry about Brooklyn at the moment. The hockey teams are middling teams that are going to maybe make it into the playoffs, but neither is a star team. And then you've got the Yankees. The Yankees are the one shining thing in New York sports because the Mets aren't any good at the moment. So everybody talks a big game about what's expected by New York City sports. None of the teams at the moment outside of the Yankees are coming through. So maybe it's a time to rebuild for some of those franchises. Maybe that's the first step for the Giants. Maybe the Jets will be doing that. Maybe the Mets. The Yankees have already done it a little bit. But the rest of New York City, not great for sports fans.
Yeah, I feel kind of bad about that.
No, you don't. Not one bit.
This is the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brew House, and this portion brought to you by Dunkin' Donuts. America runs on Dunkin'. Bob, good to see you again. Thanks.
Thank you for having me.
Mike Catalana, Pat Duffy.
Why didn't
Thank
you wear
you for
your
watching.
Brady jersey this week?
I've got it, on a plaque on the wall. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week for the Rochester Press Box.